Hi everyone. This video is going to be a book review about this book, Smarter, Faster, Better: The Secrets of Being Productive in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg, if I'm pronouncing it right. Duhigg, I don't even know. But this is the book. He is also the author of The Power of Habit. So I know it's kind of reversed on my screen, but bear with me. Currently, I'm reading The Power of Habit, and it's pretty good. I think I like this book better, though, because this is his second book, so he improved. So who is Charles Duhigg? It says, Charles Duhigg is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter for the New York Times and the author of The Power of Habit. He is a winner of the National Academies of Sciences, National Journalism, and George Polk Awards, a graduate of Harvard Business School and Yale College. He lives in Brooklyn with his wife and 2 children. Now, this book was published in 2016 by Random House, and it's basically 8 effective methods that are used to make you more productive and better at what you do. So he has 8 chapters: motivation, teams, focus, goal setting, managing others, decision making, innovation, and absorbing data. Now, some of these tools I have used before unknowingly, and others I have never used and I never expected them to work, and they did. So I thought that was pretty impressive. I learned a lot while reading this book. I really got into this book more than I thought I would. I'm starting to get into the one I'm reading now, The Power of Habit, but not as much as this book. It was just so interesting. So basically, okay, I'm going to go over some of the chapters that I liked and also the things that I didn't like about the book. So first, let me go to the chapters I liked. So, chapter 2, he's talking about teams. And he mentions, or he gives an example of different people in different teams. One was Google, and another was this woman that had joined Google. It was talking about her experience being in a team back in college. But that chapter really affected me because this year I had one job and now I'm at a different job. And so this chapter resonated with me because it's like 2 different worlds. So at my old job, I was a real team player. I got along with everybody in my job. I got along with all my coworkers. We were like one unit. We all worked together. It flowed very well. So if something wasn't done, somebody else would do it. And it was like a family. That's how it was. So we would also communicate outside of work, and we worked on projects together. It was like this. We were like one brain. So now I'm at a new place. I've been there 2 months, and they seem to have this team thing going, but I feel like I don't fit in like that anywhere. It's new. I haven't gelled with people, and I'm trying to figure out why. Is it me? Is it because it's different people? I'm also thinking about like the demographics, because at my other job, it was a smaller number of people that I worked with. Most of them were African American, except for the branch manager, the youth services librarian, one clerk, and the youth services provider. Those were the only 4 non-black people. They were all white. Whereas this one, there's about 40 people that are employed, and it's mostly white, except there's one Asian woman and maybe 3 or 4 black people. So the demographics are different. So sometimes when you're on a team, just a little tweaking of something can change how the whole team operates. Taking away one member can change how the whole team operates. Adding a member changes how the whole team operates. So this chapter, I feel, related to the innovation chapter, where they were talking about the where he was writing about the team that created Frozen, and how Frozen went from one completely different story that was a complete failure to a box office hit. And they didn't know how to end the story or where to go with the story until they changed one factor, which was they made this woman head up over it, like in a different position. So one small tweak changed the entire project. Because it's not the big things that change things, it's the little tiny factors. And that's why I like this book, because he focuses on the very tiny, minute factors that nobody notices, but it changes the whole course of events. There was another chapter that really stood out to me. Actually, it freaked me out a bit, and that's why I remember it, but it's called Focus. And sometimes we'll be so focused on everything going around that we forget the basics of something. So, for example, he uses an example of this flight, this airplane that crashed. His premise is that the co-pilot or pilot got not the pilot. The co-pilot? It wasn't the captain, the co-pilot, or someone underneath the captain got distracted. And when he started to panic, he forgot, I'm assuming, or the author is assuming, the basics of what he had learned. Like if he had just stopped panicking and calmed down, the plane would not have crashed, because then he would have known what to do. So there was one point where he was supposed to go down. And he's like, I'm going down. And he was actually going up. And he did this like 1 or 2 times where he's like, I'm going down, and he's going up. And when he was supposed to go down, he jerked down. It was supposed to be slight. He jerked down. So the author uses this example of panic, how we'll forget. We're so used to doing something that when another factor comes in, we forget what we have practiced. We forget what we already know, and we just become mentally blind. This chapter reminds me of the book Practice Perfect, which is by 3 teachers. It's by 3 different authors. And they train these teachers how to teach the students and make it become second nature. They make them practice different methods of teaching until it becomes second nature, where they don't even have to think about it. If something comes out of the blue, they just go into that mode that they have already practiced. But because of this panicking, people lost their lives. Sometimes we will lose focus and nothing bad will happen. But there are some things in life where you really have to focus. If you make one mistake, it could cost you your life because you aren't paying attention. Pay attention to what you're doing. Okay. The last chapter was one of my favorites, which is absorbing data. And the reason this is my favorite is because I worked with children for about 13 years. And it wasn't in a school. It was just all different after school programs. So I feel like I've seen almost every type of method that people have used to reach a child. I've seen people get grants. I've seen people put like technology into different programs because they feel that if they use more stuff, that this will help the child. But usually it's just the basics that will help the child. Paying attention to the child. paying attention to the direction that the child is going, being simple. You don't need all of these gadgets and everything in order to transform a child's mind. So in this last chapter, he talks about this failing school and how it transformed itself because the teachers were already working, had to work with data that they already had. So they had spent all of this money, or all this grant money had been given to them and everything, to give them all of these designer computers and tech savvy programs and all this analytical stuff and statistics for them to look at. But they weren't looking at it because they were distracted by all of these gadgets. So they had to create a room called the data room, where the teachers had to write out the data by hand on cards. And because they were working directly with the data became personal to them. They started absorbing it more because they didn't have a gadget as a barrier. And because they were working with this data directly, they were able to see patterns. And other teachers were able to see patterns as well. So they started collaborating. And because of this closeness to their data, the students succeeded. And their school succeeded as well. So I'm a firm believer in self-discipline, working with your hands. I don't really care much for technology. I'd rather just write out something by hand. I'd rather just have my binder with my little notes written out. I would rather read a physical book than get a Kindle because I want to feel what I'm reading. I want to experience what I'm reading. So yeah, I would recommend this book. For real. I feel like this has given me a lot of tips that I can utilize in my life. Because some of the stories just blew my mind. I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's just really amazing. So that's what I liked about the book. What I didn't like about the book, and it's not like it's bad, it just was annoying. So he's already said everything he's needed to say. But he just goes on and on. Like, you end at chapter 8, and then you put a whole appendix after chapter 8. Like, you have already said all that needed to be said. It's like, the cake is perfect. Don't add any more whipped creams. Just stop. Stop adding whipped cream. Stop it. It's delicious already. Like, how more delicious can it get? That's how I felt. But he goes into his appendix and he talks about writing the book, and I'm just like, the appendix you could have incorporated into the book. I've already read this stuff. But what was more annoying were the notes. He writes these extensive notes. I wish he had just added the notes at the end of each chapter so I wouldn't have to get this whole bulk of notes at the end of the book. Like, it makes me feel like the book is not finished, like it's going to be going on forever. I can understand why he put these notes, because obviously he's a journalist. Obviously he wants to give credit to where credit is due and get all of his facts right and interview people and make things more clear, but it just annoyed me. I almost wish he had just put footnotes at the end of each chapter instead of putting all the notes in the back of the book. Like, I just can't. I did learn an interesting story though about Saturday Night Live and how it came to be. That was really fascinating. How a bunch of people that were so different but somewhat similar, with various backgrounds and styles of humor and belief systems, could come together and make a show that's still going on to this day. So yeah, that is what I have read. I would recommend this book to individuals who just want, to improve yourself. but also to people who are working in teams. So like leaders over a team, managers, people that are over children. Actually, people that are over children, I recommend Practice Perfect more so than this one. But for this one, I recommend just leaders, individuals. It's pretty good. So after I finish this one, I'll be sure to reference this book when I do the Power of Habit book review, also by Charles Duhigg. And I'm going to write to him and tell him what I thought about the book, because that's what I do with authors. I write them and usually they write back. But he's kind of big, so we'll see if he writes back. So thank you for watching this video and have a beautiful day. Bye bye.